Chapter 1. Hidden Potential. The lavender uniform hugged Sarah Mitchell's slender frame as she moved through the opulent corridors of the Pinnacle, Manhattan's most exclusive hotel. The contrast between the marble floors beneath her feet and the cramped studio apartment waiting for her in Queens couldn't have been starker. At 34, Sarah embodied a walking contradiction, a highly educated woman with expertise that remained hidden behind a housekeeper's cart. Room 1242 needs a turn-down service right away, the stern voice of Mrs. Henderson, the head of housekeeping, echoed through Sarah's earpiece. The Harrington party just requested it before their dinner reservation. On it, Sarah replied, adjusting her cart's direction toward the executive suites. As she navigated through the gilded hallways, guests passed by without a second glance. She had mastered the art of invisibility in these hallways, a skill that proved both useful and painful. Few knew that beneath the perfectly pressed uniform was a woman with a master's degree in international relations from Columbia University, fluent in Spanish and French, and currently teaching herself Dutch through late-night study sessions. The language wasn't a random choice. It represented her dream of someday working for an international organization headquartered in Amsterdam, a city whose pictures decorated the wall above her desk at home. "You're working overtime again tonight?" Rosa, another housekeeper, asked as they crossed paths in the service elevator. Sarah nodded with a weary smile. "Bills don't pay themselves. Besides, I need the practice interacting with international guests." The truth was more complicated than she let on. Sarah's student loans loomed large, and her mother's medical bills had only grown since the diagnosis. The overtime wasn't a choice, it was survival. Yet even amid exhaustion, Sarah fiercely protected her evening study time. Those few hours, fueled by discount coffee and determination, kept her hope alive. "Girl, you need to live a little," Rosa said, genuine concern in her eyes. "All this work and study. When's the last time you went on a date?" Sarah laughed. "Between shifts and Dutch conjugations? I'd fall asleep before dessert." The elevator doors opened, and Sarah pushed her cart toward room 1242. As she knocked on the door with the hotel's signature 3-tap rhythm, she mentally rehearsed the Dutch phrases she'd been studying, a habit that helped her practice even during work hours. "Housekeeping," she called out. When no one answered, she used her keycard to enter, finding the suite empty. The Harrington party had already left for their dinner reservation. This was her favorite part of the job, the moments of solitude in these spaces of luxury where she could momentarily imagine a different life. Sarah moved efficiently, turning down the beds with practiced precision, leaving chocolates on pillows and refreshing the bathroom amenities. As she worked, she continued her Dutch practice, speaking phrases aloud in the empty room. "Goedenavond. Mijn naam is Sarah Mitchell. Ik ben verheugd u te ontmoeten." "Good evening. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm pleased to meet you." The phone in the room suddenly rang, startling her. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah answered, slipping instinctively into her professional hotel voice. "Room service. How may I assist you?" The voice on the other end responded in rapid Dutch. Without missing a beat, Sarah switched languages, explaining that she would transfer the call to the concierge who could better assist with their request. The conversation lasted only 30 seconds, but it was enough. What Sarah didn't know was that in the adjacent room, separated by a connecting door, stood Ethan Blackwood, founder and CEO of Blackwood International Hospitality Group. He had been in the middle of a conference call when the sound of fluent Dutch caught his attention. Now he stood perfectly still, listening as this housekeeper effortlessly navigated a conversation in a language that fewer than 1,000 people in New York City could speak with any proficiency. Ethan was not a man easily impressed. At 42, he had built a global empire from the ground up, transforming a single boutique hotel in Boston into an international chain with properties on 4 continents. His business acumen had earned him a spot on Fortune's 40 Under 40 list years ago, and his net worth had only multiplied since then. Yet something about this unexpected moment had captured his full attention. When Sarah finished the call, she returned to her tasks, unaware that her small moment of linguistic competence had been witnessed. She completed the turn-down service and left, wheeling her cart toward the next suite on her list. Ethan moved to the window of his penthouse suite, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline as evening descended on the city. His mind was already working, calculating, planning. He picked up his phone and dialed his executive assistant. "Claire, I need everything you can find on one of our housekeeping staff. First name Sarah, works on the executive floor." He paused. "And I need it before my meeting tomorrow morning." The following day began like any other for Sarah. She arrived for her shift, punched in her time card, and joined the morning briefing with the rest of the housekeeping staff. Mrs. Henderson reviewed the day's special requests and VIP guests, emphasizing the hotel's impeccable standards as she always did. "Mitchell," Mrs. Henderson called as the meeting dispersed. "A word?" Sarah approached with a flutter of anxiety. In this economy, every unexpected conversation with management triggered fear. "You're requested in Mr. Lancaster's office immediately," Mrs. Henderson said, referring to the hotel manager. Her expression revealed nothing, but the unusual request spoke volumes. "Did I do something wrong?" Sarah asked, mentally reviewing yesterday's shift for any possible mistakes. "They didn't say. Just go now, before you start your rounds." The walk to the administrative wing felt endless. Sarah straightened her uniform, tucked a stray hair back into her neat bun, and tried to calm her racing heart. When she knocked on the heavy mahogany door labeled Thomas Lancaster, General Manager, she expected to see the familiar face of her boss. Instead, when the door opened, she found herself in a room with not only Mr. Lancaster, but also a man she recognized immediately from magazine covers and news segments, Ethan Blackwood himself, owner of the entire hotel chain and one of New York's most eligible bachelors, according to the gossip columns that Rosa loved to read during breaks. "Miss Mitchell, please come in," Mr. Lancaster said, his usual authoritative tone softened with something that sounded strangely like deference. "I believe you haven't met Mr. Blackwood before." Sarah stepped forward, maintaining her professional composure despite her confusion. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Ethan Blackwood stood, his tall frame dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of Sarah's rent. His features were sharp, his dark hair showing touches of distinguished silver at the temples, and his eyes, a penetrating blue that seemed to evaluate everything they looked upon, now focused entirely on her. "The honor is mine, Miss Mitchell," he replied, his voice carrying the confident tone of someone accustomed to command. "Or should I say, Dr. Mitchell, I understand you hold a doctorate in international relations from Columbia." Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. Yes, though I rarely use the title." She paused, struggling to understand why the CEO of a billion-dollar company was discussing her educational background. "May I ask how you know about my degree?" A slight smile touched Ethan's lips. "I make it my business to know when exceptional talent is hiding in plain sight in my organization." He gestured to a folder on the desk. "Columbia University, fluent in multiple languages, including, quite impressively, Dutch, a language you've been teaching yourself without formal instruction." Sarah felt suddenly exposed, as though the careful separation she'd maintained between her work life and her academic identity had been shattered. "I don't understand why this matters." "It matters," Ethan said, moving around the desk to stand directly before her, "because I heard you yesterday speaking Dutch on the phone in Suite 1242. What you didn't know was that I was in the connecting room on a call with our Amsterdam development team, who have been struggling for months to find someone with the right combination of skills for a very specific position." Sarah's mind raced, trying to process what was happening. "I apologize if I overstepped by answering the phone." "You misunderstand," Ethan interrupted, his expression softening slightly. "I'm not here to reprimand you. I'm here to offer you a job." The world seemed to tilt beneath Sarah's feet. "A job?" "Executive liaison for our new Amsterdam property," Ethan continued. "The position requires someone with your exact qualifications, understanding of international relations, language skills, and perhaps most importantly, someone who understands both sides of the hospitality industry, someone who has witnessed the operation from the ground floor, not just the executive suite." Mr. Lancaster shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly as surprised by this turn of events as Sarah was. The compensation package includes a salary 5 times your current wage, a company apartment in Amsterdam, international health insurance, and profit sharing once the property becomes operational, Ethan continued. I need someone who can help bridge cultural gaps, someone who understands the importance of both the visible luxury and the invisible work that makes it possible. Sarah stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sudden opportunity that had materialized before her. It was everything she had been working toward, dreaming of during those late nights with language apps and textbooks. Yet the enormity of the change, leaving New York, her mother, everything familiar, hit her with paralyzing force. This is unexpected, she finally managed. The best opportunities often are, Ethan replied. His gaze hadn't left her face, studying her reaction with undisguised interest. Take the weekend to consider. We can discuss details on Monday. He handed her a business card with his personal number, handwritten on the back. Call me directly if you have questions before then. As Sarah left the office, the card felt impossibly heavy in her pocket. The hallway seemed surreal, the familiar hotel suddenly transformed into a landscape of possibility and uncertainty. Her phone vibrated, a text from her former college roommate Jessica Warner, now a successful marketing executive, responding to last night's message about picking up an extra shift. Again? Girl, you're killing yourself for pennies. When are you going to use that brain of yours for something besides folding towels? The message stung, despite the veneer of friendly concern. Jessica had never understood Sarah's choices, had never felt the weight of family responsibility that had diverted Sarah's career path after graduation. Now, with Ethan Blackwood's offer hanging in the air like a lifeline, Jessica's words took on a new dimension. Sarah slipped her phone back into her pocket, her mind already calculating the implications of this unexpected turn. Amsterdam, a new beginning, a chance to finally use her education, her skills, her potential, but also leaving her mother behind. Starting over in a foreign country, and working closely with Ethan Blackwood, a man whose intense gaze and commanding presence had left her more unsettled than she cared to admit. By the time her shift ended that evening, Sarah had cycled through every emotion from elation to terror. As she boarded the subway home, one thought remained clear. Life as she knew it had irrevocably changed, and the decision she faced would determine not just her career path, but the very direction of her future. Chapter 2. Crossroads of Ambition. The Faux. Weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and hope for Sarah. Her small Queen's apartment, usually a sanctuary after long shifts, now felt like a prison of indecision. She paced the limited floor space, Dutch language podcasts playing in the background, as she tried to imagine herself actually living in Amsterdam. You're going to wear a hole in that floor, her mother said from her recliner, where she spent most days since her condition had worsened. Eleanor Mitchell had once been a force of nature, a high school English teacher who raised Sarah alone after her father abandoned them when Sarah was just 3. Now at 68, Eleanor's body was betraying her, though her mind remained sharp as ever. I can't just leave you, Sarah said, voicing the thought that had dominated her weekend deliberations. Eleanor's expression softened. That's exactly what you can do, what you should do, she gestured for Sarah to sit beside her. I didn't sacrifice everything for your education so you could spend your life making beds for rich people. The home healthcare costs can be managed, Eleanor interrupted firmly. Your cousin Diane already offered to let me move in with her family in Connecticut. The change of scenery would do me good. Sarah took her mother's hand. You've always wanted to see Europe. A smile crinkled the corners of Eleanor's eyes. And I will. Through your stories and photos. She squeezed Sarah's fingers. Don't you dare use me as an excuse to run from this opportunity. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Sarah had barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. She dressed with extra care, choosing her single professional outfit, a modest navy blue dress she'd purchased for job interviews that never seemed to materialize, before heading to her meeting with Ethan Blackwood. The Pinnacle's executive offices occupied the top floor of the hotel, a realm Sarah had visited only once before, during her initial orientation 5 years ago. The elevator required a special key card, which had been left for her at the front desk in an envelope, with her name elegantly handwritten across the front. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world that seemed to exist in a different universe from the service corridors she normally traversed. Gleaming hardwood floors, artwork that looked museum-worthy, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Central Park created an atmosphere of refined power. Miss Mitchell, a polished woman with an immaculate bob and designer glasses, approached her. "I'm Claire Winters, Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. He's expecting you." Sarah followed Claire past several offices to a set of double doors at the end of the hallway. Claire knocked once before opening them, revealing a corner office that took the hotel's luxury to an entirely new level. Ethan Blackwood stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the New York skyline. He turned as she entered, and Sarah was struck again by his commanding presence. Today he wore a navy suit that seemed designed specifically to emphasize his broad shoulders and athletic build. At 42, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had conquered every challenge life had presented. "Sarah," he said, using her first name with a casualness that suggested he'd already decided they would be working together. "Thank you for coming." Claire quietly disappeared, closing the doors behind her. "Have you made a decision?" Ethan asked, gesturing toward a seating area where a coffee service had been arranged. Sarah took a deep breath. "I have questions first, if that's all right." A slight smile touched his lips. "I'd be concerned if you didn't." For the next hour, they discussed the details of the position. The Amsterdam property would be Blackwood International's European flagship, a historic canal house being transformed into the most exclusive luxury hotel in the Netherlands. Sarah would serve as the cultural liaison, helping to navigate both Dutch business practices and managing relationships with international clientele. "Why me?" Sarah finally asked the question that had been gnawing at her. "There must be dozens of candidates with my qualifications who don't require relocation from another continent." Ethan leaned forward, his blue eyes intent on hers. "Because you understand something they don't." He paused. "You've seen both sides of the equation. You know what it means to provide luxury service and what it costs the people who deliver it." Sarah felt her cheeks warm under his scrutiny. "And that matters to you?" "It should matter to anyone building a sustainable business," he replied. "But on a personal level, yes. I started as a night auditor in a 2-star motel in South Boston. My father cleaned pools. My mother served breakfast at a diner. I haven't forgotten what it's like." The revelation surprised her. Ethan Blackwood's rise to wealth and power had been documented in business magazines, but the humble origins of his story remained largely untold. "The Amsterdam project isn't just another hotel to me," he continued. "It's the realization of a vision I've had for years, creating something that honors both luxury and the human element that makes it possible." His expression grew more intense. "I need someone who shares that understanding." Sarah felt something shift inside her, a recognition of genuine passion behind the business proposition. "When would you need me to start?" 2 weeks from now. We'd fly to Amsterdam together. I'll be there for the first month to oversee the final stages of development." Sarah took a deep breath. "Then I accept." The words hung in the air between them, changing everything. Ethan's expression remained controlled, but satisfaction gleamed in his eyes as he extended his hand across the table. "Welcome to Blackwood International, Sarah." When his hand closed around hers, she felt the strangest sensation, as though she had just stepped off a precipice, not knowing whether she would fall or fly. The following 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Sarah gave notice at her apartment, helped her mother move to Connecticut to live with Diane's family, and assembled what felt like an inadequate professional wardrobe from department store sales racks. The reality of her situation hit hardest when she packed her meager belongings into 2 suitcases, her entire life contained in so little space. On her last day at the Pinnacle, Rosa organized a small goodbye party in the staff break room, complete with a sheet cake from the hotel kitchen that read, "Amsterdam or bust." in blue icing. "Promise you'll video call," Rosa insisted, hugging Sarah tightly. "We want to hear everything about those gorgeous Dutch men." Sarah laughed, even as her eyes welled with tears. "I'm going there to work, not date." Mrs. Henderson, who had been a stern but fair supervisor for 5 years, approached with uncharacteristic warmth. "You deserve this opportunity, Mitchell. Don't waste it." As Sarah finished her final shift, turning in her lavender uniform and employee badge, a text message arrived from an unexpected source: Jessica Warner, her former college roommate. "Heard about your big break from mutual friends. Drinks tonight to celebrate? The Plaza Bar, 8 p.m., my treat." Sarah hesitated. Her relationship with Jessica had grown strained over the years, their diverging paths creating a gulf widened by Jessica's thinly veiled condescension towards Sarah's career choices. Yet something about starting this new chapter made Sarah want to close old loops and perhaps even rebuild bridges. "See you there," she replied. The Plaza's bar was exactly the type of opulent space Sarah had cleaned but never patronized. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over leather armchairs and mahogany tables where New York's elite sipped cocktails that cost more than Sarah's hourly wage. Jessica waved from a corner table, looking every inch the successful marketing executive in her designer dress and perfectly styled hair. She stood to air-kiss Sarah's cheeks, a gesture that felt more performative than genuine. "Finally, your Cinderella moment arrives," Jessica said as they sat down. She signaled a waiter. "Champagne for both of us. We're celebrating a fairy tale." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "It's a job opportunity, Jess, not a fairy tale." Jessica hummed disbelievingly. "A billionaire hotelier personally plucks you from housekeeping to be his right-hand woman in Amsterdam. That's not a job offer, that's the plot of a romance novel." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Is he as handsome in person as in the photos?" "This isn't about Ethan, Mr. Blackwood," Sarah corrected herself quickly. "It's about my qualifications finally being recognized." Jessica's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "On a first-name basis already? Interesting." She accepted 2 champagne flutes from the returning waiter, handing one to Sarah. "To your qualifications." Sarah took a small sip, wishing she had declined this meeting. "How's the agency going?" "Booming. We just landed the Levinson account." Jessica named a luxury fashion brand that even Sarah recognized. "Speaking of which, you'll need a complete wardrobe overhaul for this new position. Your current look won't cut it in European luxury circles." The comment stung, though Sarah knew there was truth in it. "I've been shopping." "At Macy's." "Clearance, I'm guessing," Jessica said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let me help you. I have connections with all the top brands. We could get you proper attire at insider prices." "That's generous, but nothing. Consider it my investment in your success." Jessica took another sip of champagne. "After all, we Columbia girls need to stick together." Something in Jessica's tone made Sarah uncomfortable, a hint of manipulation beneath the generous offer. Their friendship had always been complicated by subtle power dynamics, with Jessica's wealthy background and social connections putting her steps ahead from the beginning. "I appreciate the thought," Sarah said carefully, "but I need to find my own way in this role. Authenticity matters to me." Jessica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Authenticity won't help you navigate boardrooms and VIP client meetings. Trust me, I know this world. And I need to learn it myself," Sarah replied firmly. Jessica studied her for a long moment before setting down her glass. "You always were stubborn. It's admirable in a self-sabotaging sort of way." She reached for her purse. "Just be careful, Sarah. Men like Ethan Blackwood don't make these kinds of offers without expecting something in return." The implication made Sarah's cheeks burn. "That's not what this is." "If you say so." Jessica extracted a business card and slid it across the table. "When you realize you need help navigating those waters, call me. I have connections in Amsterdam too." Sarah pocketed the card more out of politeness than intention. As they parted ways outside the bar, Jessica's farewell hug felt loaded with unspoken tensions and warnings that left Sarah more unsettled than reassured. The night before her departure, Sarah stood at her apartment window, looking out at the Queens neighborhood that had been home for the past 7 years. The sounds of the city, sirens, honking horns, the rumble of the elevated train, created a familiar urban lullaby she had grown accustomed to. Tomorrow she would trade it all for the unknown. Her phone chimed with a text message from Ethan. "Car will pick you up at 7 a.m. ETA at Teterboro 7:45. Wheels up at 8:30. The casual reference to a private airfield rather than JFK was yet another reminder of how dramatically her circumstances were changing. Sarah sent a brief acknowledgement, then resumed her contemplation of the city lights. She thought about her mother, now settled in Connecticut, putting on a brave face despite her concerns. She thought about Rosa and the other housekeeping staff, who had celebrated her promotion with genuine joy, free from the envy that had colored Jessica's reactions. Mostly she thought about herself, the girl who had deferred dreams for responsibility, who had cleaned rooms while holding on to academic ambitions that seemed increasingly unreachable with each passing year. Now, at 34, she stood at a crossroads. The path ahead offered everything she had worked for, yet it also meant walking away from the known, the comfortable, the safe. It meant putting her trust in Ethan Blackwood, a man whose motives she couldn't fully decipher, whose intense gaze seemed to see through her carefully constructed walls. As dawn broke over New York, Sarah zipped her suitcases closed with finality. Whatever awaited her in Amsterdam, success or failure, opportunity or regret, she was determined to face it on her own terms. The Sarah Mitchell who boarded that private plane would not be defined by her past, circumstances, her mother's illness or Jessica's warnings. For better or worse, she was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one where her hidden potential might finally have room to flourish in the light. Chapter 3. Amsterdam Revelations, Amsterdam. Greeted Sarah with steady rain and skies the color of pewter, a stark contrast to the blazing August heat she'd left behind in New York. As the private car navigated the narrow streets alongside canals, Sarah pressed her face to the window, absorbing every detail of her new home. The gabled houses, centuries, older than anything in Manhattan, stood shoulder to shoulder like old friends sharing secrets, their reflections rippling in the dark water below. "First time in Amsterdam?" Ethan asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them during the drive from Schiphol Airport. Sarah nodded. "First time in Europe, actually." Something flashed across Ethan's face, surprise perhaps, or a realization of just how significant this journey was for her. "Then we should make it memorable." Instead of heading directly to her new apartment, the car detoured through the heart of the city. Ethan pointed out landmarks with the easy familiarity of someone who had spent considerable time here: the Royal Palace on Dam Square, the floating flower market, the distinctive round tower of the Westerkerk. "The Anne Frank house," Sarah murmured as they passed the somber building on Prinsengracht, recognizing it instantly from her studies. Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. A powerful reminder of both human cruelty and resilience. He glanced at her. "We'll make time for you to visit properly once you're settled." The consideration in his voice touched her. Throughout the 9-hour flight on his private jet, Ethan had been the consummate professional, discussing the Amsterdam project, explaining the intricacies of Dutch business culture, and outlining her responsibilities. Yet there had been moments, a lingering glance, an unexpected personal question, a subtle shift in tone when their conversation moved beyond business, that suggested layers to Ethan Blackwood that the business magazines had never captured. The car finally turned onto Herengracht, one of the city's most prestigious canal streets, and stopped before a stately 17th-century merchant's house with a stepped gable facade. "Here we are," Ethan said, as the driver opened the door. "Your new home." Sarah stepped out, tilting her head back to take in the full height of the building. "This entire place is for me." Ethan chuckled. "Not quite." The lower floors house our European administrative offices. The top 2 floors have been converted into executive apartments. Yours is the penthouse on the 5th floor. Sarah followed him through an arched doorway into a marble-floored foyer where an elderly gentleman in an impeccable suit greeted them in Dutch. Ethan responded fluently, gesturing toward Sarah as he made introductions. "This is Henrik," Ethan explained in English. "He's the building concierge and has served in this house for over 40 years. He'll help you with anything you need to get settled." Henrik bowed slightly. "Welcome in Amsterdam, Miss Mitchell. It is my pleasure to assist you." The elevator, a modern addition carefully integrated into the historic building, carried them to the 5th floor. When Ethan unlocked the door to her apartment, Sarah had to stifle a gasp. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the canal, illuminating a space that seamlessly blended historic architectural elements with contemporary luxury. Exposed beams crossed the high ceiling above a living area, furnished with elegantly simple designs. An open kitchen with marble countertops and professional-grade appliances flowed into a dining space centered around an antique wooden table that could comfortably seat 8. "This can't be just for me," Sarah said, overwhelmed by the grandeur. "The apartment serves a dual purpose," Ethan explained. "You'll occasionally need to host business dinners and small gatherings for partners and important clients. The space reflects the standard our company represents." He led her through the rest of the apartment, a master bedroom with an ensuite, bathroom featuring a soaking tub positioned before a window with another stunning canal view, a second bedroom converted into a home office, and a small terrace nestled within the gables of the roof. "It's too much," Sarah whispered, her fingers trailing over the smooth wooden surface of the desk in the office. "It's exactly what you've earned," Ethan countered, his voice firm. "Your credentials have been underutilized for years, Sarah. I'm simply providing the environment where your talents can flourish." Before she could respond, his phone chimed. He checked the screen, frowning slightly. "I need to take this. Why don't you get settled? Henrik will bring up your luggage, and I've arranged for dinner at 8. A proper introduction to Dutch cuisine." After he left, Sarah stood alone in the silent apartment, feeling suddenly small among such luxury. She moved to the windows, watching boats drift along the canal below, cyclists navigating the narrow streets, and pedestrians hurrying through the misty rain. Amsterdam continued its centuries-old rhythms, utterly indifferent to her presence or the dramatic turn her life had taken. She thought of her mother, who by now would be settling into her new room at Cousin Diane's house in Connecticut. She thought of her former apartment in Queens, probably already rented to someone new. She thought of Jessica's warning about men like Ethan Blackwood and their expectations. "What am I doing here?" she whispered to the empty room. The question lingered, unanswered, as she began unpacking her modest wardrobe into the spacious walk-in closet. Her carefully budgeted new clothes, practical business attire from department store sales racks, looked woefully inadequate, hanging beside the empty spaces, clearly meant for a more extensive collection. The contrast made Jessica's barbed comments about her wardrobe sting anew. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Henrik stood at the door with the last of her luggage and a large bouquet of fresh tulips in various shades of purple. "From Mr. Blackwood," Henrik explained, placing the flowers on the dining table. "He thought they might make your new home feel more welcoming." Sarah thanked him, touched by the thoughtful gesture. After Henrik left, she discovered a small envelope nestled among the blooms. Inside was a handwritten note. "Amsterdam has been a city of new beginnings for centuries. May it be the same for you. Ethan." The simple sentiment brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She wiped them away quickly, chiding herself for the emotional response. This was a professional opportunity, nothing more. The apartment, the flowers, the thoughtfulness, all standard practices for relocating an executive. She couldn't afford to read more into them. At precisely 8 o'clock, another knock announced Ethan's arrival. He had changed from his travel clothes into dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that softened his usual imposing presence. For the first time, he looked less like Ethan Blackwood, billionaire CEO, and more like simply Ethan, a man taking a colleague to dinner. Ready to experience real Dutch cuisine? He asked, a smile warming his features. The restaurant he had chosen was a small, elegant establishment housed in another canal-side building. The maitre d' greeted Ethan by name, leading them to a quiet corner table with views of both the water and the historic Oude Kerk, illuminated against the night sky. "You come here often?" Sarah asked as they settled in. "Whenever I'm in Amsterdam," Ethan confirmed. The owner, Peter, was one of my first friends in the Netherlands. His father ran this place for 50 years before him. As if summoned by his name, a robust man with a salt and pepper beard approached their table, breaking into a wide grin at the sight of Ethan. The two men embraced warmly before Ethan introduced Sarah. "So this is your new American colleague," Peter said, his Dutch accent lilting pleasantly as he switched to English. "Ethan has told me about your project. Very exciting." "All good things, I hope," Sarah replied with a smile. "Only praise," Peter assured her. "And now you must try our specialties. I will bring you the best Dutch experience." What followed was a culinary journey through traditional Dutch cuisine: rich pea soup with smoked sausage, perfectly prepared herring with pickles and onions, slow-cooked beef stew with winter vegetables, and finally, warm stroop waffles drizzled with caramel sauce and served alongside artisanal ice cream. Throughout the meal, the conversation flowed easily between them. Ethan shared stories of his early career struggles, his voice softening when he spoke of his parents' sacrifices to support his education. "My father worked 3 jobs to put me through Boston College," he said, twirling the stem of his wine glass thoughtfully. "He never complained, not once, even when his health started failing from the strain." "Is he still—" Sarah began, then hesitated, unsure how to phrase the question. "He passed away 5 years ago," Ethan replied, understanding her unfinished question. "My mother followed 6 months later. The doctors called it heart failure, but honestly, I think it was heartbreak. They'd been inseparable for 42 years. "I'm sorry," Sarah said softly, seeing genuine grief in his eyes. Ethan nodded his acknowledgement. "They saw the beginning of my success, but not what it's become." He looked up, his gaze direct. "What about your family?" "You mentioned your mother moved to Connecticut." Sarah told him about Eleanor, her teaching career, her illness, her unshakable belief in her daughter's potential. She found herself revealing more than she'd intended, including her father's abandonment, and the financial burdens that had shaped her choices after graduation. "So instead of pursuing international diplomacy, you ended up making beds at my hotel," Ethan concluded, his voice tinged with something that might have been regret. "I made my choices," Sarah replied firmly, "and I don't regret them. My mother needed me." "That kind of loyalty is rare," Ethan said, studying her with renewed interest, "and valuable, in business and in life." As they walked back to her apartment through the now gentle rain, a comfortable silence settled between them. Amsterdam at night was magical. Soft lights reflected in the canals, centuries-old architecture illuminated against the dark sky, the distant sounds of music drifting from cafes and bars. At her door, Ethan paused. "Your first day at the office?" "Is Monday. Take the weekend to explore the city, adjust to the time difference. Henrik can recommend the best local spots." "Thank you," Sarah said, "for everything." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. A softening, a moment of vulnerability quickly masked. "You've earned this chance, Sarah. I'm just fortunate to have found you before someone else did." Before she could respond, he wished her good night and walked toward the elevator. Sarah watched him go, struck by the curious mix of power and solitude that seemed to define him. The weekend passed in a blur of exploration. Sarah wandered the cobblestone streets of Amsterdam, discovered hidden courtyards and gardens, navigated the efficient tram system, and spent hours in the Rijksmuseum marveling at Dutch masterpieces. With each passing hour, the city revealed more of its character: pragmatic yet whimsical, historic yet progressive, intimate yet cosmopolitan. By Monday morning, she felt ready to face her new professional reality. She dressed in her most confident outfit, a navy suit with a crisp white blouse, and descended to the third floor where the Blackwood International European offices occupied the entire level. Claire Winters, Ethan's executive assistant whom Sarah had briefly met in New York, greeted her at the elevator. "Good morning, Sarah. Welcome to the team." Her crisp British accent and immaculate appearance exuded efficiency. "Let me show you around before the staff meeting." The office space balanced the building's historic character with modern functionality. Original, wooden beams and restored herringbone floors contrasted with glass partitions and state-of-the-art technology. The staff, a diverse mix of Dutch locals and international transplants, welcomed her warmly, though Sarah detected undercurrents of curiosity and perhaps skepticism about her rapid advancement. In the conference room, Ethan began the weekly staff meeting by formally introducing Sarah to the team of 20. "Miss Mitchell brings a unique perspective that will be invaluable as we develop our Amsterdam property," he explained. Her background in international relations and cultural understanding, combined with her first-hand knowledge of hotel operations, provides exactly the bridge we need between concept and execution. Sarah felt the weight of expectation in his words, along with the scrutiny of her new colleagues. Among them, she noticed a striking blonde woman watching her with particular intensity, Margot Visser, the marketing director, according to the organizational chart Claire had provided. After the meeting, as staff dispersed to their duties, Margot approached Sarah with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Amsterdam. Quite a change from housekeeping, isn't it?" Her English carried only a slight Dutch accent, her tone hovering between friendly and challenging. "A welcome change," Sarah replied evenly. "I'm looking forward to contributing to the project in meaningful ways. I'm sure Ethan has great plans for your contribution." Something in Margot's emphasis made the comment feel loaded with insinuation. Before Sarah could respond, the other woman continued, "We should have lunch this week. There's so much about our operation that isn't covered in the employee handbook." The invitation felt like both an olive branch and a warning. "I'd like that," Sarah said, determining to keep an open mind. Their lunch happened 2 days later at a trendy cafe overlooking the Amstel River. Margot arrived 20 minutes late, offering a breezy apology about an important client call that couldn't be rescheduled. "So," Margot said after they ordered, "the American housemaid who captured our CEO's attention, you must be something special." Sarah maintained her composure. "I believe Mr. Blackwood recognized my educational background and language skills as assets to the project." Margot's laugh was musical but sharp-edged. "Of course. Though it's curious that your assets were discovered while cleaning his suite rather than through normal recruitment channels." "Life rarely follows expected paths," Sarah replied, refusing to be baited. "I understand you've been with Blackwood International for 5 years. 6, Margot corrected. "Ethan and I have built the European division together." She took a deliberate sip of her wine. "We have a close working relationship." The implication hung in the air between them. Sarah chose her next words carefully. "Then I look forward to learning from your experience. My goal is to contribute to the team's success, not disrupt established dynamics." Something in Margot's expression shifted. Respect, perhaps, or at least reassessment. "Fair enough, but you should know that Ethan has a pattern with female employees, extraordinary opportunities, personalized attention, and then—" She trailed off suggestively. "I'm here to do a job," Sarah stated firmly. "Nothing more." Margot studied her thoughtfully. "We'll see if Ethan shares that view." The conversation moved to safer professional topics, but Sarah left the lunch with a hollow feeling. Was there truth in Margot's implications? Had her opportunity been based on something other than merit? The doubts followed her back to the office, where she found Ethan waiting in her small but elegant workspace. "How was lunch with Margot?" he asked, his expression unreadable. Sarah hesitated. "Informative." A shadow of understanding crossed his face. "Margot is brilliant at marketing, but has a tendency to mark her territory. Whatever she told you about me or this company, I suggest you form your own judgments based on experience." "That's my intention," Sarah replied, maintaining professional distance despite the intensity of his gaze. "Good," He placed a folder on her desk. "These are the final architectural plans for the hotel. I'd like your thoughts on the cultural accessibility elements, particularly how the spaces will function for our international clientele while honoring Dutch design sensibilities." The assignment was exactly the type of work Sarah had hoped for, substantive, challenging, and aligned with her expertise. Over the next 3 weeks, she immersed herself in the project, working closely with architects, designers, and cultural consultants. Ethan respected her input, often incorporating her suggestions into final decisions, which gradually earned her the respect of the team, even, reluctantly, Margot's. One evening, as Sarah worked late finalizing recommendations for the hotel's multilingual communication systems, Ethan appeared at her door. "It's nearly midnight," he observed. "The work will still be here tomorrow." Sarah rubbed her eyes, suddenly aware of her exhaustion. "I wanted to finish this section." Dedication is admirable, but burnout helps no one. He gestured toward the window. "It's a beautiful night. Walk. With me?" Something in his tone made it more request than command. Sarah hesitated only briefly before saving her work and gathering her coat. Amsterdam at midnight was peaceful, the daytime crowds replaced by a gentle quiet, broken only by distant laughter from late-night cafes and the soft lapping of canal waters against stone walls. They walked in comfortable silence along Herengracht, the historic buildings illuminated by soft streetlights. "Are you happy here, Sarah?" Ethan asked suddenly. The question caught her off guard. "I'm finding my place," she answered honestly. "The work challenges me in all the right ways. And outside of work?" Sarah considered her response. "I'm still adjusting. It's a big change. New country, new role, new everything." "No regrets about leaving New York?" "No regrets," she confirmed, "though I miss my mother." Ethan nodded, understanding. "Family anchors us, shapes us." He paused at a small bridge, looking out over the water. "My parents were immigrants. Lebanese, moved to Boston when my father was 22 and my mother 19. They never learned to fully navigate American culture, but they made sure I could." Sarah studied his profile, struck by this glimpse into his heritage. "You don't speak much about your Lebanese background in interviews." A rueful smile touched his lips. "The American hospitality industry has certain expectations about leadership. Early in my career, being Ethan Blackwood was more marketable than being Ethan Blackwood Bishara." "You changed your name," Sarah realized. "Simplified it," he corrected, gently. "My father understood. He'd done the same, changing from Bishara to Blackwood when he first arrived. Called it adapting to succeed." His expression grew distant. "I've often wondered what he'd think of me now, if he'd see success worth the compromises or just another lost piece of our heritage." The vulnerability in his voice touched something deep in Sarah. "I think he'd be proud of what you've built," she said softly. "And maybe this Amsterdam project is a chance to reclaim some of what was set aside, to create something that bridges cultures rather than choosing between them." Ethan turned to face her fully, his eyes searching hers. "That's precisely what I've been trying to articulate. This hotel isn't just another property. To me, it's a statement about cultural preservation alongside innovation, honoring history while creating something new. That's why you needed someone who understands both sides," Sarah said, the pieces falling into place. "Someone who's lived in different worlds." "Yes." The simple affirmation hung between them as Ethan stepped closer. "From the moment I heard you speaking Dutch, I knew you understood something essential about crossing boundaries, about belonging in multiple places." The intensity in his gaze made Sarah's heart quicken. They stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence in the cool night air. For a suspended moment, the line between professional and personal blurred dangerously. Then Ethan's phone shattered the moment with its insistent buzz. He checked the screen, his expression instantly shifting to concern. "I need to take this," he said. "It's the contractor about an emergency at the hotel site." As he stepped away to take the call, Sarah released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The almost moment left her unsettled, questioning boundaries she had thought were clearly defined. Whatever was developing between them went beyond simple professional respect, yet was complicated by their working relationship and the power differential it entailed. When Ethan returned, his demeanor had shifted back to business. "There's a situation at the construction site. I need to go there immediately." The magic of the moment had dissolved, replaced by professional urgency. As they walked quickly back toward the office building where Ethan's car awaited, Sarah silently acknowledged that navigating her new role would require balancing not just cultural and professional challenges, but emotional ones as well, challenges that no career preparation could have anticipated. The water leak at the hotel construction site kept Sarah and Ethan occupied with crisis management for weeks. Sarah's Dutch fluency proved invaluable in navigating vendor negotiations and permit extensions, earning respect from the Amsterdam team, including Margot, who grudgingly acknowledged Sarah's competence. By October, the crisis had passed. Construction was back on schedule, and Sarah had settled into Amsterdam life. Her apartment felt like home, filled with local artwork and antique books on Dutch history. Weekly video calls with her mother in Connecticut were reassuring, as Eleanor's health showed signs of improvement under new specialists. Crisis struck again when Amsterdam's Historical Preservation Committee threatened to halt construction. Committee Chair Professor Willem van der Meer, a cultural anthropologist Sarah had cited in her dissertation, claimed their modifications compromised the building's historical integrity. Given 24 hours to prepare, Sarah worked through the night developing a proposal that would honor the structure's heritage while maintaining the project's vision. At the hearing, Sarah presented their revised approach in flawless Dutch, proposing to preserve more of the original structure than required, incorporate traditional Dutch craftsmanship, and establish a museum space documenting the building's 400-year history. "We don't see historical preservation as an obstacle," she concluded, "but an opportunity to create something uniquely valuable, a space where past and present engage in meaningful dialogue." Professor van der Meer's skepticism softened. "Your approach is unexpected, Miss Mitchell. Most developers view our committees as bureaucratic hurdles rather than cultural guardians." "Then they're missing an essential truth about Amsterdam," Sarah replied. "This city's identity is inseparable from its history." The committee approved their revisions, with Sarah personally overseeing compliance. The crisis had transformed a potential adversary into a valuable advisor and solidified the team's respect for Sarah's contributions. By November, as winter descended on Amsterdam, the hotel had been officially named the Herengracht Exchange, reflecting its merchant house history and future as a place of cultural interchange. One snowy evening, Ethan appeared at Sarah's office with a revelation. "I've been thinking about what you said about honoring history while contributing to the future. I want the hotel to reflect its complete heritage, both Dutch history and my family's Middle Eastern roots." He met her gaze directly. "I'd like to restore my full name, to open this hotel as Ethan Blackwood Bishara's creation." "That's a powerful statement," Sarah said, recognizing the significance. "I want to take it further, incorporating Lebanese design elements throughout the property, not as exotic decoration, but as authentic expression." Ethan continued, "And I want you to help me design it, not just as the hotel's cultural liaison, but as my partner in this project." "Partner?" Sarah echoed. "Co-director, with your name alongside mine, the Blackwood Bishara and Mitchell Herengracht Exchange." Stunned, Sarah asked simply, "Why?" "Professionally, because you've proven yourself invaluable," Ethan explained. "Your cultural fluency and ability to bridge worlds have transformed this project into something far better than I originally envisioned." "And unprofessionally?" Sarah pressed. "I find myself thinking about you in ways that have nothing to do with business," Ethan admitted. "I find myself looking forward to seeing you each morning, missing you when you're not there. I find myself wondering if you feel any of the same things." "Whatever I might feel," Sarah replied carefully, "you're still my employer." "Then we change the context," Ethan countered. "The partnership I'm offering is legal and binding. Your position would be secure regardless of any personal developments between us. As Ethan turned to leave, Sarah called after him, "Who is Miranda Chen?" The question hit Ethan visibly. "Where did you hear that name?" "Does it matter?" Sarah countered. "Who is she?" "Miranda Chen was the cultural liaison for our Singapore property 3 years ago," Ethan admitted reluctantly. "We became involved personally. The relationship ended badly." "How many other cultural liaisons have there been, Ethan?" Sarah asked. "How many other women have you made these same promises to?" After hesitation, Ethan confessed, "There have been others, not many, but yes, relationships that blurred professional and personal boundaries." Sarah later learned Jessica Warner had sent the warning email about Miranda, motivated by jealousy, after Ethan had rejected her advances years ago. Still, Sarah couldn't ignore the pattern Ethan had admitted to. The next day, Sarah met with Margot, who surprised her by supporting the partnership offer. "You're the most qualified person, regardless of his personal interest," Margot insisted. "With previous women, attraction developed into professional respect. With you, the respect came first." That evening, Sarah received life-changing news. Her mother had been accepted into an experimental treatment program in Switzerland that could significantly improve her condition. But Eleanor needed Sarah as her support companion for the first 3 months. When Sarah explained the situation to Ethan, his response was immediate. "We'll make it work. You can oversee much remotely, and I'll personally ensure your vision is executed faithfully." "Thank you for understanding," Sarah said, touched. "Family comes first," Ethan replied. "And what about the personal matter between us?" "That requires more time," Sarah answered honestly. "I need to understand who I am in this new life I'm building, and I need to know that any relationship between us would be based on genuine connection, not pattern or convenience." "I can wait," Ethan said simply. On her departure day in January, Ethan drove her to the airport himself. 3 months, he said at the terminal. "The hotel will be waiting, Amsterdam will be waiting, I'll be waiting." Sarah smiled. "This is just an intermission, not an ending." On the plane, she opened Ethan's parting gift, an antique silver compass with a note. "No matter where life takes you, may you always find your true north." As Amsterdam receded below, Sarah felt neither defined by circumstances nor limited by others' expectations. The woman who once made beds at the Pinnacle now shaped international ventures. The daughter who sacrificed career for family now honored both. The person who once felt invisible now stood firmly in her own light. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would return, not just to a city or job or potential relationship, but to the fullest expression of herself she had ever known. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope Sarah and Ethan's journey from Manhattan's service corridors to Amsterdam's canals has captivated you. Their story reminds us that potential often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation, please subscribe for more emotionally resonant stories that explore life's unexpected turns. Like this video if you rooted for Sarah's success, and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in her position? Find our playlist of similar stories about hidden talents and second chances linked to your